Des mots et des liens, épisode 1, Morgane, Paul, la pluie écossaise et les oiseaux.
All right. Hello.
Good evening.
Good evening, sir. Good evening, ma'am. So I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions and feel free to answer the way you want. Don't think about it too much. It's pretty much your life and your daily life, so you'll know the answers. It's okay.
Hopefully.
Yes.
And I'm interested in what you think and what you want to say, so no wrong answer. First things first, I would like to give you the opportunity to introduce yourself the way you want. So maybe we can start with Morgane.
My name is Morgane. I am 27 years old. I am French. I live in Scotland and I co-manage a wildlife rescue centre with my partner Paul.
My name is Paul Reynolds. I am 37 years old. I co-manage New Art Wildlife Rescue with Morgane. I'm also the Deputy Chair of the British Wildlife Rehabilitation Council, and I specialise in wildlife rescue policy.
How would you describe your job to anyone who might not know about it?
So we manage a wildlife rescue centre, which in basic definition means that we rescue wildlife casualties that have become injured, orphaned, ill, normally because of human activity. And so we attempt to the best of our ability to make up for the losses in that way.
Yeah, our job ultimately is to protect the welfare of wild animals. Sometimes, sadly, that requires euthanasia to end suffering. And thankfully, a lot of the time, it also means getting them better and getting them back to the wild.
And what is maybe the most common case you encounter, or two most common cases?
We get a lot of road traffic casualties that have been hit by cars, a lot of window collisions that have hit windows, cat victims that were caught by pets in general, dogs or cats. I think those might be one of the most common reasons for a wildlife casualty to come into our care.
Yeah, definitely. I agree.
We'll get into the maybe some precise figures. I know, Paul, you like them.
Yes.
About how many species you have in the hospital and stuff like that. But first, I would like to know how each of you, how did you become a wildlife rehabilitator?
You go first.
Yeah, so I did a baccalaureate back in the days and had an opportunity to become a European volunteer through the EVS project, which I think has been renamed since. I wouldn't know the name of it now. I did a 1-year-long volunteering placement in Cornwall at a monkey sanctuary, and that was very much the beginning of my career. I then began doing some more placement / work alongside Paul, who I met at the monkey sanctuary, and we worked our way into wildlife rescue work, starting abroad and then settling down in Scotland.
Yeah, I mean, I went to university to study wildlife conservation and zoo biology. I then started volunteering at a primate rescue centre in Cornwall, obviously where I met Morgane. I got a job there, spent the first start of my career there before moving on to manage a rescue centre in Ethiopia, then in Costa Rica, and then we moved on to manage a rescue in Scotland and England, and then back to Scotland again. So yeah, we both specialise in this area, and Morgane has come at it from an experience side of it. We both have, and that's where we're at.
And how is that you are here now in Scotland, and how did you become manager of this centre?
Well, when we came back from Costa Rica because of Brexit. We were worried, Morgane being French and me being English, we were worried about what that would mean in the future if we were not here. So it's one of the reasons why we returned. We went to manage a rescue centre in Scotland initially, not this rescue, another one. We weren't very happy there. It wasn't really the standard that we like to work at. So we left after just 10 months. When we were leaving that rescue centre, we had heard about this rescue here that was sort of fundraising to build a wildlife hospital, and we'd heard about them. So we got in touch and said, are there any jobs going? Because we were leaving Glasgow. As it was, there were no jobs going at that time. So we got a job managing a rescue centre in Hampshire, down in England. So we moved down there. For 3 years, we managed that centre. Whilst we were there, we got back in touch with Keith and Pauline, who started this rescue centre. And they sort of, made the suggestion that perhaps we could take over for them to retire, and we could buy their house, which we're sitting in front of now. And that would be a potential option for us. We thought, well, working in our sector, it's not an easy sector to be able to buy a house in. You work long hours, you don't get a lot of pay. You do this work because you love it, not because you're going to be able to afford some vast empire of housing. So we ended up moving up here. We bought the house and we took over the rescue.
Justement, you said you do the work because you love wild animals and you love it, not because of the pay or stuff like that. So what is it that you like the most about being a wildlife rehabilitator?
I think it's having a job that has, what would be the right way to put it, a value. It's a purpose. A purpose, yeah, something where we save lives and we get to make things a fraction better than they were before and prevent suffering. And getting to work with animals is definitely a bonus.
Yeah, we're not working to make somebody else rich. We're working to do a positive thing for society, for communities that we work around, to be able to help wild animals that through no fault of their own have ended up in trouble because of human beings. So it's our little way of making the planet a little bit better, one casualty at a time.
That's a good way to put it. About community work, do you guys do some sort of pedagogical work with the community or not?
Yeah, Paul does quite a bit of talks to schools and local community. It's something that is very much time of year dependent because we are working an awful lot during spring and summer with the wildlife casualties. But when things slow down, Paul takes on quite a big part of the educational side of things, and we're hoping to grow this as time goes on.
And we also do a lot of education work on our social media as well. Morgane does the social media for New Ark, and a lot of what we do education-wise really does come through social media alongside those community talks. And we do a lot of veterinary training as well, to train vets in how to handle wildlife and the common presentations that they might see. What does a broken wing look like in a bird and so on. We definitely cover that.
So you touched upon what you like the most about being a wildlife rehabilitator. And what is the most challenging part?
For me, it'll have to be the people side of things, the dealing with the phone inquiries and dealing with people that might be emotionally very invested in the casualties that they find or drop off, meaning that getting through to them that an animal may not make it can be quite difficult. The conflict side of things, the managing people's expectations is something I find quite heavy. And if I could skip that part, which obviously is not possible, I would certainly skip it. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people say, I couldn't do your job. And they say that in reference to us having I've just gone to the scene where a deer is in great distress, very badly injured, and I've had to end its suffering. And they'll say, I couldn't do your job. This would be too much for me. The reality is, same for Morgane, the most difficult part of our job is dealing with people. Making sure that people understand why you're doing what you're doing, understanding why the outcome that they really wanted for that animal is not possible or not going to happen. Engaging with the public is both great fun and greatly tiring. So I think it's dealing with people that don't understand the work that we do, and also the time. We, as you've experienced in your time with us, it's not just a 9 to 5 job where you turn up at 9, you go home at 5, you relax in the evening. In winter to a certain degree we get more of that, but over spring and summer, we're available 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. So there will be emergencies, and as we've had in the last few weeks here, lots of emergencies in the evening, lots of emergencies in the early hours of the morning, whilst also managing and working at the centre throughout the day. So that's probably the most challenging bit for me, is the time that we have to put into it. No matter whether you're tired, if you're not at your best today, you're not really full of energy yet, you still might get that 2 o'clock call for a deer. So that's definitely the more challenging aspect.
This is one of my questions also, is what is your typical day?
Yeah.
I think we've got quite different days. If I was to sum up my day, it starts with, if I'm hand rearing some mammals, I might start my day with bottling some babies like rabbits or hares, then moving on to going into the hospital where I'll start doing all the feeds, the cleans, managing the team, helping with triage and assessment, giving medication, and this is on repeat throughout the day really, but you've got a bit of a different day, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, my day might start with a rescue first thing in the morning. Someone might have hit a deer or they've found an unwell animal. So whereas Morgan does a lot of the hands-on care, I do a lot more of the rescue work, the triaging of patients when they come in, the physical assessment, and I deal a lot with the public, sort of phone calls and the sort of that side of management and human management. So between us, as a package, we cover all aspects of wildlife rescue, which is great, because I'm not any good at rearing little baby animals. It's not my strong point, but I'm quite happy running after a deer or catching a badger.
And when it comes to the breakdown of the year, this very much follows the seasons. So what we tend to find is when spring comes, a lot of the babies are born, and this is when people are out a lot more, pets are out a lot more, so there's more wildlife-human conflict taking place. So this is why we call spring and summer a busy season, is because there's more juveniles about, which are more at risk of getting caught by cats and kidnapped by people, and so on. Then in winter it's a little bit quieter, although again, depending on the weather, we may see influx of seabirds getting washed up after storms, more deer or owl collisions because people are driving around at night when they get to work or back from work, which means that we do see spikes of road traffic collision animals, but not in the same numbers than we do in spring and summer when all the babies are around. We also get autumn juvenile hedgehogs, which is quite a heavy season as well, where just before hibernation, some of the hedgehogs that have not been doing very well, or they were born quite late in the year, are out and about and struggling more as it starts to get colder. So we see again a big spike in hedgehogs normally around October, November time. And we see that with all species, there will be a peak for the species throughout the year, which may correlate with the weather or time of year, or indeed what people are up to in their garden when this happens.
And what do you do when a casualty arrives?
So generally, there's 3 ways in which a casualty enters the hospital. The first is the member of the public that found it, brings it in, contained in a box, a small bird, for example. They'll hand that patient over to us. We'll take it into a room to triage it, to assess it, see how it's doing. Whilst we're doing that, the member of the public will fill in a form that details who they are, where the animal was found, why it needed help. And then, of course, we'll let them know at least what the current finding is. Is the animal viable, or does the animal have some grave injury that's not compatible with rehabilitation? So that's one way. The other way is, of course, we go and rescue the animal, we bring it back ourselves, then we deal with it. And the third way, we have a whole team of volunteer drivers. These are volunteers who will go and pick up small contained animals, like the bird in the box, and bring them into us. So there's 3 ways in which animals generally come in, and then, of course, they go through the same process from there.
You talked about volunteers. Maybe can you talk about how the center is funded, and how do you guys make money?
Well, financially, we don't get any support from the government, so everything is self-funded pretty much. So we are lucky to have 2 charity shops, which will sell second-hand items in order to fundraise for our project. We also get the occasional grants, and then other than that, it's very much based on donations. So people can choose to donate maybe a one-off donation when they drop off a patient, or they can choose to do monthly donations, or they can even purchase items for us. We do have an Amazon wish list where if people are not comfortable donating money, they can choose to donate an item that we very much need. Those are the main ways we fundraise, aren't they?
Yeah, as a Scottish registered charity, everything is donation.
And another question is more policy-wise, because can you maybe just describe a little bit more your role in the council? I don't remember the exact term. Yeah.
So, within my role within the British Wildlife Rehabilitation Council, we are looking at, well, first of all, we represent this sector of work in the UK. And further to that, we represent our membership to ensure that they have access to up-to-date information about wildlife rescue and rehabilitation, and we can take their concerns, if necessary, to government level and so on. So that's really what we're doing. We're a representative organisation. I do a lot of work as well to do with wildlife rescue and rehabilitation in various government bodies and non-government bodies, representing our line of work, making sure that the people who are involved in government level policy understand what it is that we're doing, to then make sure that we're represented fairly. So yeah, we do a lot of that.
Would you call it some type of lobbying?
We could lobby, it's true. So that we're not a lobbying organisation, but we could lobby. We're mostly about advice and policy.
Okay.
So our job would be to advise and to ensure that the right information is available to those that do set policy. We're also in the Scottish Cross-Party Group for Animal Welfare, which is a political group made up of politicians and non-politicians like myself, where we advise on animal welfare. But obviously, from our perspective, we're interested in anything relating to wildlife. So yeah, we do quite a lot of that.
On a maybe broader note, how would you describe your relationship with nature, to living things in general?
Realistic? Would realistic be? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting question. Like our relationship with the natural world.
Yeah.
I mean, we're very much a part of the natural world. I think we don't see ourselves as being separate.
Right, and we appreciate things a lot more. We appreciate species and their ecological niche and the need we've got for them to all coexist all together. I think because we get to work with such a wide variety of species, we kind of get the whole picture and how everything that we do may affect them and everything that they do may affect us, although that's mostly us the problem. I think it offers a great vision of the forest rather than the tree, if I can put it that way.
We see the bigger picture, and we
see what pollution does to our casualties. We see what people being careless about gardening and pesticide usage does, and we see what over-farming does. We see the consequences of a lot of things, and I think if a lot of people could see what we see every day, we probably would have a different approach in how we live our lives.
Yeah, because for most people, if one person hits a deer with their car, it may be the only time they ever do that in their whole life. And it's one thing, one event, one incident out of their however many years of life they have. For us, we meet people doing that on a near daily basis. So it's not just one event. We see it over and over again. So we see the reality that wild animals go through just because humans exist in the way that they exist. For where we live, both within our house and our gardens, and then at the wider rescue centre, because we're aware of that. We've planted over 1,000 trees on site and hedgerows, and we're trying to sow wildflowers and to ensure that both our garden here and the broader, 9 acres of rescue centre land is a home for wildlife, a sort of living sanctuary where wild animals can come and get food over winter and, survive in, although we're in a very beautiful part of Aberdeenshire, there is an awful lot of industrial farming and there's a lot of busy and fast roads. So if we can create little islands around the place where animals can live and thrive, I think for us that's part of our connection to nature.
Yeah, and our job doesn't stop when we walk out of the centre. It carries on as we live. We always make sure to not leave any traces behind and to accommodate wildlife at any given time.
And Morgan, you talked also about how it makes you more present, especially like listening to birds and stuff like that. I find that very interesting to just consider yourself as a tiny part of the...
Yeah, we begin to notice everything. We notice all the birds, and we're aware of all the species we've got on site. They're not just there in the background. We very much live all together, and it's a beautiful part of it.
Same with the plants and the trees. We notice when things are changing, when certain birds have returned because they've flown back from Africa, like the swallows and the house martins that are flying around us now as we do this interview.
And when winter comes, where the pink-footed geese start to honk above our house, the Scottish bird life especially has taught us a lot about the seasons.
And of course, we see the seasonality in the work that we do as well. Of course, we've mentioned that already, how different times of the year bring different animals into care for different reasons. So yeah, working in this way and living in this way, I think Morgane's right, it makes us very present, at least present in what we're doing. And when we're walking around, we don't ignore that random bird on a hedge. We want to know what it is.
We notice everything.
Yeah, that flower over there, you think, what's that? I've never seen that flower there before. So you're very aware, and it's hard to put ourselves in the shoes of
someone who may not be as connected with nature.
But I can imagine, based on the world today, there's probably lots of people that walk around and don't notice the animals around them and the plants and the trees.
And that is a very sad life.
A very sad existence indeed, but that is the modern world.
Do you see some effects of climate change on the casualties you might receive on wildlife in general?
I think it's difficult for us to say that, having been here just for nearly 3 years. It's hard for us to say because we've moved around different rescue centres that are widely different geographically.
What we can say is we can see the effect the weather has on the animals. We can't say the weather is due to climate change because indeed it would take probably dozens of years to be able to assess that fairly. But we can see how the weather not being the way it's meant to be, i.e. we've just had a drought for 11 weeks, had barely any rain at all falling in Scotland, and we've seen the consequences of that on wildlife. And same with heavy snow or storms, which were hit quite badly by a couple of years ago. We see the effect that has on wildlife for sure. Yeah,
we see the effects of extreme weather. But we also know, although we haven't been here for very long, we know that there are changes in the behaviour of wild animals. So, for example, there was a time where hedgehogs, the European hedgehog, would hibernate from November to March. It would be asleep. Everybody would predict that as a calendar. It was a normal event. Whereas now, even here, in the far north of the UK, where it's a lot colder than the south of England, there are hedgehogs that, they hibernate sometimes not until January, until March. They wake up throughout. In the south of England, there are hedgehogs that don't hibernate at all because it's too warm. So in a way, yes, we do see things like that across the UK. We know there are obviously studies looking at the effects of climate change on wildlife, and some of it we'll see in wildlife rescue. But it's hard for us to attribute, having been here just for 3 years, what might be happening.
Okay. Maybe on a more personal note, maybe as a team, but also individually, what makes you the most proud today? It can be something about, of course, your work, but maybe something else. Just what comes to mind. What are you the most proud of?
I'm very proud of how far we've come. We've started with a career that's quite difficult to get into, a career that's not very well known, a career that is very much based on how much you're willing to give in terms of your time, your passion. So I'm very proud that we got ourselves into a managerial role. We now manage a rescue centre of our own, if I can put it that way. And we've managed to put enough money aside to buy a house. And life is feeling like things are falling into places. And
we've built our little fur family.
Yes, we have. Our dogs and cats.
Yes, as wildlife people, we're not particularly interested in having children at present in our lives, but we certainly like our pets.
Hopefully this is where Clementine puts a little clip of Juniper.
Yes,
please.
Yes, we have our wonderful Juniper and Gracie and Wren and Freya, and they very much in our domestic life bring us all the joy that sort of family life.
Yeah.
And
we don't ask a lot of lives, and this is very much it.
Yeah, I would agree. I think we've come a long way. We've got very far within our careers. I mean, with British wildlife, we've only been doing it for maybe 6 years, maybe British wildlife anyway, outside of all the exotic stuff. You know, we've got ourselves into a very good position, and we've managed to influence a lot of policy and a lot of approach to this work in our sector. And I'm proud of that as well, because we need voices to speak for wildlife, and that's what we're trying to do.
What are you wishing for yourself, again, individually or as a couple, as a team, in the future?
I think I'll start with this one, and I think what we'd really like is to get to a point where we have a good team at the rescue centre, or a larger team at the rescue centre, that allows us to live the best of both worlds, where we can be doing all of our wildlife rescue work, have a bit more time to ourselves at the same time.
Yeah, share the load, I suppose, a little bit better.
Because right now, it's us that's 24 hours a day, and there is no alternative. Like, as soon as the staff team go home, it's all up to us. So it would be nice to be able to share that load more broadly with a wider team. And it gives us more time to do all the other things we want to do as well. But yeah, I think that's quite a nice goal that we're aiming for. At the end of the day, we live and work together. We have done for 8 years now. Lived and worked together all the time, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. We're together, and we love it, and we love spending our time together. And when we're working, obviously, we get dragged away from each other sometimes. And because we are both managing this organisation as well, it's hard for us to get time off all the time together. And really, it's just to get that nicer balance where, yes, we get to work together every day, which is fantastic. It'd be nice to take a few days holiday. So that's the longer term goal.
Cool.
I agree.
And how? What would be your advice for people working together, couples working together? How do you do it?
I don't know. It's quite simple for us.
Yeah, it just works. Like,
just pick someone you like.
Yeah, and
It should be easy.
Yeah, I think the fact that we have a shared passion.
Yeah, shared common interest.
Yeah. If we didn't have the passion that was shared, I don't know what would happen. If Morgane worked in banking and I worked here, I mean, it would be great for the money. But outside of that, when I say, sorry, darling, I won't be home till 8 o'clock tonight because I've got to do A, B, and C, and then someone in a normal job might be like, but you're only paid till 5 o'clock. Why are you there till 8 o'clock? They wouldn't necessarily understand the reality of this type of work. We understand the reality. We understand the stress and the how tiring it is. We're very good at when one of us is a bit down or a bit weak or ill or whatever it might be, the other one steps up. It just works. I can't word it any other way. We're both happy. We enjoy each other's company, clearly, because we live and work together 24 hours a day. And we hate it when we're apart. There are times where if I've got to go and speak at a conference, I might be away for a day or two. It's dreadful, So yeah, we've definitely got that.
What advice would you give to someone who's interested in working with wildlife?
Hands-on experience. Volunteering is very, very important to get into this field. The vast majority of wildlife rescue centres anyway, when they will look into hiring, they will look at the volunteers and who's been donating their time and efforts, which may be quite difficult for people that don't come from a background where maybe they've got the time or the money to be able to volunteer, but they are local opportunities in many, many places where you can, volunteer at a conservation project or maybe bird ringing or a rescue centre, domestic or wildlife. Any hands-on experience will add to the CV and make anyone a lot more likely to get a job into this field.
Definitely, I agree. And we get lots of, when we have hired people previously, you'll get hundreds of applicants. And really what we're looking for when we look at those CVs and cover letters, you're looking for the passion. Yeah. But you're looking for hands-on experience. It's really so much more important. I mean, I favour both hands-on and academia. If you could do both, great. I would love to see a degree alongside the experience. The advantage of going to university, in the UK at least, and it's the same in Europe, is you've then got time to volunteer. Once you enter normal work life, you're going to have less time to volunteer. My advice, if you're at university, you want to work with wildlife, you're studying biology or an appropriate field, get the volunteer hours in. It's really what you need to do.
I think it's a great thing to know that if you have hands-on experience, it might be possible for you to find a job and be valued.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
The majority, a lot of the people we've worked with have not had any related studies in any way, but they love animals. They've been showing up and volunteering, and
they're the right sort of character. Because, you know, it's not just about loving animals, though, is it? Because a lot of people love animals and want to do the job, but you've got to have the right passion and the right approach.
A lot of people are very academic and know everything, but they can't hack it either.
Yes, agreed.
There's a very specific type of people that can make it in, and if you've got what it takes, then it's pretty easy to get in.
By volunteering and working within the sector and people getting to know you, you can see that someone's got the right passion, the right approach. And that's really the value, what you're looking for. Networking, going to conferences, get online, get volunteering. These are all ways in which you make contacts and you get into the sector.
What is the one message you would like to share with the public, or you would like the public to know?
So my main message that I'd like the public to be aware of is what you do in your day-to-day life has consequences on the wild animals around you. When you leave your barbecue on the beach, when you let a balloon off into the sky in a misguided sort of show of support for something, you're potentially impacting on the wild world around you. And I accept that not everybody's going to care, or not everybody has the time or the energy to commit to learning about that. But just be aware that your actions, both positive and negative, impact on the animals around you. And at the very least, you don't throw your rubbish on the floor, you plant a nice plant in the garden, all good.
I think I would just ask for compassion for the humans, for the wildlife. And I think it would actually link back to what Paul has said, is to just see the bigger picture at any given time, and to be compassionate when coming across an animal who is suffering, to be compassionate to the people who will rehabilitate or make the difficult decisions for them. Just compassion. We need more compassion, I think, on every level.
So on to figures and species and stuff like that. How many species do you treat at the center?
Species-wise, I think it's around, per year, last year, it was about 145 different species, I think, would be a fair number. The total number of animals was 2,182 for last year. So obviously this goes up every year. This year already we're 14% up on where we were at this point last year. So we're busy. For a team of 4 staff, including ourselves.
I believe 2/3 of our species are avian species as well. We treat mostly birds as opposed to mammals. We also treat mammals, but not in great levels like birds.
Yes, and of that, a huge percentage, so well over half of the animals we're dealing with are red listed. So they are red or amber listed. So they're species of conservation concern. So a lot of the animals we're dealing with are not doing very well in the wild already. So if we can help by getting that individual back to the wild after it got hit by a car, and we can get that bird back into the wild where it can breed year on year once again, we're making a small contribution to conservation as well.
Very cool. And so many birds. Could you, just for people to picture, list some types of birds?
The majority of what we deal with are species that people are familiar with. So we've got a lot of pigeons, a lot of herring gulls, a lot of mallards, a lot of blackbirds. Common species that we see in our gardens or along the beach are normally what we get the most through. But we also rescue birds of prey like owls and buzzards and sparrowhawks, many seabirds like guillemots and gannets.
But we've also got the mammals like hedgehogs and badgers, weasels, stoats, deer, mice, of course,
seals,
wild mice,
occasionally, bats. we treat everything that people may come across, which is surprising how many species you may come across in need of help.
All native wildlife. So we've got to be prepared and have the facility and the time for anything from a tiny little mouse to a huge deer and everything in between. So that's one of the challenges, but also one of the good things about what we do is it's never the same. It's always variation, always change.
If I find a wild animal in the wild that is hurt, what do I do? For example, a bird, because I'm guessing it happens more often than a seal, for instance.
Right.
You go ahead.
All right then. So if you find an injured small animal and it's safe to do so, please contain the animal. That might be using a towel to gently pick it up and pop it into a box or other container. It may be to secure it in your garden. Next up, you're going to want to call a wildlife rescue service or facility to get further advice. But first things first, if it's safe to do so, contain it and then call a wildlife rescue. What you shouldn't do is start giving the animal food or water or trying to treat it yourself. Always call a wildlife rescue.
Perfect. Thank you very much for your time on these busy days and busy season. I'm very, very glad I got to interview you.
J'ai eu la chance d'être bénévole pendant 2 semaines au centre de Morgane et Paul. Grâce à eux, aux membres de l'équipe et aux autres bénévoles, j'ai appris ce que cela signifiait vraiment de prendre soin des animaux. On m'a montré les routines de nourrissage et de nettoyage pour que je puisse les reproduire. J'ai assisté aux arrivées de nouveaux patients et suivi Paul lors de certains de ses sauvetages. Au contact des animaux, j'ai eu l'impression de débloquer quelque chose. J'ai pu davantage me rendre compte de l'impact de la vie humaine sur la faune sauvage. Et j'ai été émue par la vulnérabilité de ces animaux une fois leur équilibre rompu. Bien sûr, c'est un privilège immense que de pouvoir prendre le recul nécessaire pour initier ces réalisations ou ces réflexions, encore plus avec face à soi les paysages écossais. Mais je sais aussi que j'ai déjà été impressionnée par l'intensité d'un bourdonnement en passant à côté des ruches que mon grand-père avait. J'ai été amusée en observant chaque jour les têtards de la mare devenir des grenouilles, et j'ai déjà été profondément triste et inquiète en constatant le peu de papillons qui virevoltaient autour de moi dans le jardin de mes parents. J'en suis capable donc, mais ça faisait longtemps que ça ne m'était pas arrivé. La société dans laquelle nous vivons, son système capitaliste et ses implications, nous poussent à nous détacher de notre environnement et des autres, ne pas voir, ne pas regarder, briser les liens. Or, plus on connaît, plus on se sent lié, plus on veut protéger. S'intéresser à ce qu'il se passe autour de nous devient alors un véritable acte de résistance. À la fin du montage, je repense à ce qu'a dit Morgane sur le fait qu'on ait besoin de plus de compassion. La compassion qui mène à l'action, celle de protéger les humains, les animaux, la biodiversité. Il est peut-être là le but ultime.